The first knock came at exactly 3:17 a.m., sharp and deliberate, like someone tapping on the inside of Ethan Cole's skull. Ethan sat up in bed, heart racing, the digital clock glowing red in the darkness of his small rented house on the edge of town. He lived alone, miles from his nearest neighbor, surrounded by silent trees and a road that rarely saw headlights after midnight. The knock came again, 3 slow taps on the front door. He told himself it was nothing. Wind, maybe, a branch, yet something about the sound felt intentional, almost patient, as if whoever stood outside knew he would eventually answer. Ethan wasn't a brave man, but he wasn't cruel either. He was the kind of person who returned lost wallets, who helped strangers push stalled cars, who stayed late at the shelter on weekends even when he was exhausted from his warehouse job. Kindness, for him, wasn't heroic, it was habit. He slipped on a hoodie and walked toward the door. "Hello," he called, his voice thin. No answer, only the distant hum of insects and the soft creak of the house settling. He hesitated, then unlocked the door and opened it a crack. The porch was empty. Ethan exhaled a shaky laugh and shook his head at himself. Just as he was about to close the door, he noticed something on the wooden floorboards, a small, mud-streaked shoe. A child's shoe. His stomach tightened. He scanned the darkness beyond the porch light. "Hey," he said, louder now. "Is someone there?" Still nothing. Against every instinct screaming at him to lock the door and forget what he'd seen, Ethan bent down and picked up the shoe. It was cold, damp, and far too small to belong to anyone who should be wandering these woods alone. That was the moment he realized he wasn't alone anymore. He felt it, not a sound, not a movement, but a presence, pressing in from the darkness like a held breath. The porch light flickered, once, twice, then steadied. Ethan stepped back inside, clutching the shoe, and closed the door. Behind him, from the hallway leading deeper into the house, came the faint sound of bare feet on wood. Ethan spun around. "Who's there?" His voice cracked. The hallway was empty, yet the air felt colder, heavier. He stood frozen, listening as the footsteps moved, slow, careful, then stopped right outside his bedroom door. Silence. Ethan didn't sleep the rest of the night. By morning, exhaustion blurred the edges of his fear. He convinced himself it had been a stress-induced hallucination. He worked long hours, slept too little, worried too much. The shoe sat on his kitchen table, silent proof that something had happened, but not proof of what. He decided to find its owner. After work, Ethan drove into town and stopped by the local police station. The officer on duty glanced at the shoe, then at Ethan, unimpressed. "No missing child reports," she said. "Probably fell off a truck or something." "It was on my porch," Ethan insisted. "At 3 in the morning." She shrugged. "You live near the highway. Things happen." Ethan left feeling foolish, but the unease stayed with him. That night, he placed the shoe by the front door, unsure why he felt it mattered. At 3:17 a.m., the knocking returned. This time, Ethan was already awake. He stood in the hallway, staring at the door as the knocks echoed through the house. 3 taps. A pause. 3 more. Slowly, he opened the door. A child stood on his porch. The boy looked about 7 years old, barefoot, his clothes soaked and torn. His skin was pale, too pale, and his eyes were dark, reflecting no light at all. He held his arms close to his chest, shivering. Ethan's fear flared, sharp and bright, but it was quickly overtaken by something stronger, concern. "Oh my God," Ethan whispered. "Are you okay?" The boy nodded, though his eyes remained fixed on the floor. "Come inside," Ethan said without thinking. "You must be freezing." The boy hesitated, then stepped forward. As he crossed the threshold, the air in the house dropped several degrees. Ethan shivered but ignored it, grabbing a blanket from the couch and wrapping it around the child's shoulders. "What's your name?" Ethan asked gently. The boy looked up slowly. "Daniel." Something in the way he said it sent a chill down Ethan's spine, but he smiled anyway. "I'm Ethan. Let's get you warm." He made hot chocolate, his hands shaking as he poured the milk. When he turned back, Daniel was standing in the hallway again, staring at the closed bedroom door. "Do you live here alone?" Daniel asked. "Yes," Ethan said. "It's just me." Daniel nodded, as if confirming something for himself. As the night wore on, Daniel spoke little. He said he was lost, that he'd been walking for a long time. When Ethan asked about his parents, the boy went quiet, his fingers tightening around the blanket. "I can help you," Ethan said. "We'll find them. You can stay here tonight." Daniel finally looked at him then, and for a brief moment, something like relief flickered across his face. That night, Ethan dreamed of water. He stood at the edge of a river, dark and swollen, its surface rippling under a gray sky. He could hear a child crying somewhere downstream. When he tried to move, his feet sank into the mud, holding him fast as the cries grew louder and more desperate. He woke gasping, the sound of rushing water still echoing in his ears. Daniel was gone. Panic seized him. Ethan searched the house, calling the boy's name, his voice bouncing off empty walls. On the kitchen table lay the blanket, neatly folded, and beside it, the shoe, now clean. Written on a scrap of paper beneath it were 2 words. "Thank you." Ethan called the police again, his voice urgent, explaining everything. This time, the officer's tone changed. "Sir," she said carefully, "there was an incident near your property. About 20 years ago. They met later that day." The officer showed Ethan old photographs, yellowed with age. A missing child, a boy named Daniel, last seen walking home during a storm. His body had never been found, but his shoe had washed up near the river a mile from Ethan's house. Ethan's chest tightened as he stared at the photo. It was the same face. The same dark eyes. That night, the footsteps returned. But they didn't stop at his bedroom door. They moved through the house, lighter now, almost playful. The air warmed. The oppressive weight Ethan had grown used to lifted, replaced by a strange calm. He followed the sound outside, drawn by something he couldn't name. The trees parted to reveal the river, moonlight shimmering on its surface. At the water's edge stood Daniel, whole and solid, the blanket draped over his shoulders. "You found me," Daniel said softly. Ethan swallowed. "I think, you found me." Daniel smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. "I was cold for a long time. No one saw me. No one stopped." Ethan stepped closer, ignoring the fear curling in his gut. "You don't have to be alone anymore." Daniel looked toward the river, then back at Ethan. The water began to glow faintly, ripples smoothing as if the current itself was holding still. For a moment, Ethan understood, not with his mind, but with his heart. Some wounds didn't need fixing. Some spirits didn't need saving. They needed to be seen. To be welcomed. To be treated as human, even after everything else was gone. Daniel took a step backward, toward the light. "Thank you for opening the door," he said. Ethan wanted to say something, anything, but the words wouldn't come. He could only watch as the glow faded, the river returning to darkness, the forest growing quiet once more. The house felt different after that. Lighter. Warmer. Weeks passed. The nightmares stopped. The knocks never came again. Yet sometimes, at exactly 3:17 a.m., Ethan would wake with the sense that someone had just left, leaving the door gently closed behind them.